Dan had been quite busy with work at the company lately, so he often came home late. Today, he arrived home close to 10 p.m. As he walked in, Lily was sitting there waiting for him, not yet asleep. Dan approached and asked, "Why aren't you in bed? What are you waiting for me for? You know how busy I am, I can't come home early." Lily stood up, looking at her husband with sad eyes. She said, "I waited for you to talk. Can you reduce your work a bit and come home to eat dinner with me every day? Every day I eat alone, I feel so lonely. I thought I had a husband." Hearing that, Dan immediately replied, "I understand, but if I don't work, where will the money come from? How will we take care of our lives later? While we still have our health, we should work hard, so if anything happens later, we'll have something to rely on." Lily seemed unable to suppress her strong emotions, as every time she spoke, Dan had an excuse. Lily pointed directly at Dan's face and said, "You only care about work, you never pay attention to my feelings. Do you even deserve to be a husband?" Dan retorted, "What are you saying? If you're tired of living with me, then let's just end it. I don't want to come home every day to you complaining like this." Dan threw his briefcase onto the chair and turned his back, not bothering to argue with his wife anymore. But after only a few steps, Dan felt a sharp pain in his back, accompanied by Lily's enraged voice. "If you won't listen to me alive, then die and become a house ghost, obeying my commands forever." Lily didn't answer. She plunged the knife she was holding into Dan's back and stabbed him frantically, laughing like a madwoman as she did. "From now on, you'll always be at home with me, obediently listening to my every word until I die." Dan's blood splattered, staining Lily's shirt crimson. His body collapsed and he died instantly. Lily showed no fear, her face twisted into a look of delight as she killed her husband. Lily walked over, picked up her phone, and called a man. She asked, "I've already done it, what's next? Tell me what to do." The man immediately replied, "The money is settled. Now I will text you the next steps. After a while, I will deal with the corpse. After you've finished, don't let anyone find out. Check outside through the window to see if anyone is sneaking around." Then she turned back inside, dragged Dan's body into her room. Lily had already prepared a coffin and ropes. Although she was a woman, she had been working hard since childhood, so her strength was almost comparable to a man's. Lily placed Dan's body in the coffin and used ropes to tie his hands and feet. She took a talisman from her pocket and pasted it on his forehead. She smirked. "It's done. From now on, you'll never have to be busy with work again." Ken went to the city to study at university and earn money. It was only a few days until Christmas, and the university was closed. Ken decided to go home to visit his brother. He hadn't been home for almost a year since Tet, Lunar New Year, so he decided to return for Christmas to celebrate with his brother. Ken picked up his phone and called Dan. The phone rang for a while before someone picked up, but it wasn't his brother's voice, it was Lily's. "Hello, Ken, what's up?" Ken was puzzled because he knew his brother's habits. Dan always kept his phone on him and never let anyone else hold it, not even his wife. Ken immediately asked, "Oh, where's Dan, Lily? Why did you answer?" Lily replied, "Oh, your brother went out drinking with his friends today and he's too drunk, passed out over there, so I answered to see what you wanted." Ken was silent for a moment, then replied, "Oh, nothing important, Lily. Christmas is in a few days, and I've asked the school for a few days off to come visit you and Dan, so I called ahead to let you know I'm coming to have some fun. I miss you a lot, and Dan always talks about you. He said you've been gone for almost a year and haven't come back to visit." Hearing Lily say that, Ken said, "Okay, then I'll catch a bus tomorrow. You should rest now, it's getting late." Ken hung up the phone and lay down to rest, planning to leave early the next day. The journey home was quite far, over 3 hours by bus. Lily felt anxious. If Ken came home and didn't see Dan, he would question her. Now she had to think of a way to explain it to Ken, otherwise, everything would be exposed and Ken would know she had killed Dan. After a moment of deep thought, Lily seemed to come up with a plan. She smirked, her face showing a chilling evil. Ken finished packing his belongings and was ready to take the bus home in the afternoon. He saw his roommate, Leo, sitting next to him, looking very dejected. Ken immediately asked, "Hey, Leo, aren't you going home for Christmas? You look like you're going through withdrawal." Leo sighed and clicked his tongue, replying, "I really want to go home, but my parents and siblings aren't coming back this Christmas. If I go, there'll be no one to hang out with. My neighbors don't celebrate much either, so I'm not going home this year." Leo's situation was pitiful. His family was struggling and not well off. His parents and siblings were busy working, not thinking about any holidays. Ken thought of something and said, Hey, why don't you come to my hometown for Christmas? You'll be so lonely up here by yourself. Everyone else has gone home. Leo seemed to like Ken's idea, but he felt it would be awkward to just show up as a stranger at Ken's house. Leo waved his hand and said, I appreciate your kindness, but it would be strange for a stranger like me to come to your house. I can stay here alone, it's fine. Ken knew Leo really wanted to go but was just pretending to refuse out of shyness. Ken glared and said, Come on, just come with me this afternoon, pack your stuff. If you don't go, I won't talk to you anymore. Leo thought for a moment and then reluctantly nodded. All right, fine, I'll go. Will your hometown be more fun for Christmas than mine? Definitely more fun. Now go pack your things. Leo happily went back to his room to clean up and prepare to go to Ken's hometown that afternoon. It was already 8:00 p.m. Lily sat in the house, eagerly looking out the door. From afternoon until now, Ken hadn't returned. Thinking his bus might have been delayed, she was about to call him when she saw a bus stop outside. Ken and another young man stepped off. Lily ran out happily and asked, You're finally here. Why didn't you come home earlier? I've been waiting since this afternoon. I thought you wouldn't make it. And who's this with you? Ken looked at Leo, smiling, and said, Oh, this is Leo, my best friend. He was alone in the dorm, so I invited him to come with me to have some fun. Say hello to my sister-in-law. What are you standing around for? Leo politely said. Hello, Lily. Lily smiled and waved her hand. Come on in, both of you. I've prepared some food. I'll just warm it up for you. It's been getting cold since this afternoon. Yes, thank you. Lily went to the back of the house while Ken and Leo sat down to rest. Leo found the house spacious and looked around with great interest. He looked at Ken and asked, Your sister-in-law is rich, huh? If only I had enough money to build a house like this for my parents. Ken replied, My brother is the director of a packaging company, so his income is stable. This house was built recently, too. They had been home for a while, but Leo hadn't seen Ken's brother anywhere. Leo then asked, Hey, where is he? Why is it just your sister-in-law? Ken knew his brother often came home late, but it was already 9 p.m., so why wasn't he here? Ken had already told him he was coming home today. Did Lily forget to tell Dan? Ken immediately replied, He's probably still busy with work and hasn't come back yet. Let me ask Lily. Ken put his things in his room and then saw Lily putting food on the table. Ken glanced at it and enthusiastically praised, Lily, you prepared so much food. It must have taken you all afternoon, didn't it? Lily said. Yes, because you're coming home. I went to the market to buy groceries and cook for you. It was late, and Dan still hadn't returned. Ken wondered and asked Lily, Lily, isn't Dan coming home today? I told you to tell him I was coming home today. Did you forget? Lily sighed heavily and said, I did tell your brother, but he said he had some foreign clients he needed to entertain. Otherwise, he would lose a multi-billion-dollar production contract. I can't do anything about it. Even on a holiday, he can't arrange to be home with his wife. Seeing the tearful look in his sister-in-law's eyes, Ken knew she was very sad. He knew his brother always prioritized work. He would only take time off for urgent matters, otherwise he wouldn't. Ken looked at Lily and comforted her. It's okay, Lily, I'll call him tomorrow. He's always working to the point that I haven't seen him for almost a year, and he even travels abroad. Leo, oblivious to the conversation, kept staring longingly at the food on the table. Seeing Leo, Lily waved her hand and told Ken, Come on, let's eat. I see your friend looks like he can't wait. Ken, seeing Leo's eagerness, realized he must be very hungry, so Ken told Lily to sit down. Ken then told Leo, You must be starving, Leo. Just eat freely, make yourself at home. Leo looked at Lily and Ken, then nodded. I'm not shy at all. Lily smiled and said, Go ahead and eat, you two. I've been waiting for a long time. Ken and Leo nodded and started eating heartily because they were indeed very hungry, having eaten nothing since the afternoon. Lily watched the food on the table disappear quickly. She smiled subtly, not letting Ken and Leo notice. The pot of braised pork still hadn't been touched by either of them. Lily served them and said, You too, try my braised pork and see if it's good. My braised pork is famous in the neighborhood. Leo picked up a piece and put it in his bowl, then smiled and said, Let me try, I bet you cook well, Lily. After saying that, he put the meat in his mouth, chewed, and praised, It's delicious, Lily, but this meat, I have a feeling it's not pork. Ken tried a piece. This braised pork had a very strange taste. Ken nodded, agreeing with Leo, and looked at Lily, asking, I feel the same way, Lily. This has a very strange taste. Is it some kind of exotic meat? Lily, with a faint smile, pointed and said, It is pork, but it's wild boar, not farmed pork. That's why it tastes so unusual. Ken and Leo were a bit confused, but hearing Lily say that, they didn't question it further and continued eating. After dinner, both went to their rooms to rest. Ken lay down and fell asleep almost instantly. Leo, however, couldn't sleep because of the unfamiliar surroundings. He took out his phone to text his friends to pass the time. He looked at the clock. It was already past midnight, but he still couldn't fall asleep. Ken's room was only covered by a curtain. Leo accidentally glanced over and saw a shadow moving back and forth, holding what looked like a cloth and an oil lamp. Ken wondered if it was a burglar or if his sister-in-law was doing something. What could she be doing at this late hour? Leo quietly got up and crept to peek, but he didn't see anyone outside. Maybe he was just imagining things. He turned back towards his bed. He didn't want to wake Ken and risk being misunderstood as sneaking around. But before he could turn around, he saw Lily in her room, holding raw meat in her hand, walking out and heading towards the kitchen. Leo frowned and mumbled, "What? It's so late, where is she getting raw meat from her room and going out?" Curious, Leo quietly followed Lily to see. Lily was downstairs, so she wouldn't know if Leo was carefully going into her room. Leo checked if Ken was still asleep, then quickly ran to his room door. Lily carried the meat downstairs to the kitchen. She had forgotten to close her room door, thinking Ken and Leo wouldn't be careful at this hour. Leo stood outside, looking down. Lily's shadow was still bustling about downstairs. Lily didn't turn on the lights in the room, using only an oil lamp for illumination. In the dim light of the oil lamp, Leo saw a coffin next to the bed, its lid open. The putrid smell emanating from inside made him feel like vomiting instantly. Ken frowned in discomfort and mumbled, "What is she doing with a coffin in her room?" Leo was about to go in and check, but it seemed Lily was coming back upstairs. Leo quickly ran back to his room, where Ken was still snoring. Leo breathed a sigh of relief, got back into bed, and lay down, thinking about the coffin in his sister-in-law's room. He wondered what mysterious thing could be inside. The next morning, Leo and Ken woke up at the same time. As soon as they stepped out of their rooms, a pot of porridge was already on the table in front of the house. The delicious aroma was irresistible. Lily waited for them to come out and told them, "Go wash your faces and then eat the porridge. I cooked minced meat porridge." Ken and Leo nodded and went to the back to wash their faces. Leo still remembered what he saw last night in his sister-in-law's room, but didn't dare to tell Ken, knowing Ken would accuse him of spying and suspect him of having ill intentions. After sitting at the table, Ken was hungry and ate heartily, while Leo just sat there, unable to eat anything. Seeing this, Lily asked Leo, "Oh, aren't you eating the porridge? Is it because my cooking is bad?" Leo quickly waved his hand and replied, "No, it's not that, Lily. I never eat breakfast, so I'm not hungry. How could I say your porridge is bad?" Ken just shook his head, annoyed with Leo's pickiness. "With how you eat, no wonder you look like a skinny drug addict." In reality, Leo was starving. The shrimp porridge looked so tempting he wanted to devour it immediately. However, he noticed the pieces of meat in the porridge looked very strange. His gut instinct told him not to eat it. He decided to ask Ken later if there was any eatery nearby. After breakfast, Ken took Leo for a walk around the neighborhood to explore. Lily was left alone at home. She went into her room, closed the door, and walked over to the coffin. She took out the skull, which still had some pieces of meat clinging to it. She examined it and smirked. "Your brother's little brother said your meat was delicious." She placed the skull on the coffin, took out a talisman, burned it, and then mumbled some incantation. After a moment, the skull vibrated violently, and a cloud of bright smoke rose from it. Lily breathed a sigh of relief, sweat dripping from her body. She placed the skull back into the coffin and went out. As Ken and Leo were walking, Ken asked, "I heard your grandfather was a sorcerer, right?" Leo nodded immediately and said, "Yes, since he passed away, no one in our family has carried on his legacy. Why do you ask?" "Oh, I just thought you might have learned some spells from your grandfather, so I asked. Nothing else. My grandfather, when he was alive, said he didn't teach my father sorcery because he didn't want his descendants to suffer the karma of being a sorcerer. That's why." As they walked and talked, they didn't realize they had returned home until the sun was high. So the two of them went in to wash up and have lunch. Although it was sunny, with Christmas approaching, there was a slight chill in the air. As soon as Leo lay down, he fell into a deep sleep. In his dream, he saw an old man with a beard as white as snow standing beside him. Leo immediately recognized him as his grandfather and asked, "Grandpa, why are you here? I miss you so much." His grandfather looked at Leo with a serious expression, sighed, and said, "I came to find you because there's something I need to tell you immediately." "What is it?" "You must leave this house right away, or you'll be in danger." Tell your friend too, both of you leave now. Leo frowned, confused. Why would his grandfather suddenly want him and Ken to leave? This was Ken's brother's house. What danger could there be? His grandfather sighed again and shook his head, replying, I can't tell you right now, but you and your friend absolutely must leave this house. That's all I can tell you. It's for your own good. Listen to your grandfather. But before Leo could say anything more, his grandfather's image vanished before his eyes as if he had never been there. Leo woke up with a start. Ken was still sound asleep. Leo couldn't understand if his dream was his grandfather warning him. Why did he want him to leave? And Ken's sister-in-law was here. Could she possibly be dangerous to him? After thinking for a while, Leo dejectedly lay back down to sleep, ignoring his grandfather's warnings in the dream. Later that evening, after dinner, Ken went somewhere and Lily went to visit neighbors. Leo was bored staying at home alone, not knowing what to do. He sat looking at the items around the house, feeling curious. He got up to look around the house and found a meticulously crafted bronze dragon about the size of a fist. He picked it up to examine it, but as soon as he held it, he heard a man's voice counting in his ear. 1. Leo jumped, thinking it was Ken messing with him, so he didn't turn around and asked, Ken, you're back. What are you counting? No one replied. He frowned and spun around, but to his surprise, there was no one behind him. The house was near the road, so he thought he might have mistaken someone passing by for a voice inside. Ken and Lily weren't home yet, so no one could be messing with him. Leo put the bronze dragon back in its place. Next to it was a plate of very fresh fruit, as if it had just been bought that morning. Leo smirked. This fresh fruit, it would be a waste not to eat it. Ken and his sister-in-law probably won't know I ate it. As soon as Leo picked up a piece of fruit, a firm voice echoed in his ear. Careful, don't eat it. Leo flinched again. The voice was very familiar. He recognized it as his grandfather's. But before he could understand what was happening, the counting voice sounded again. 2. Leo started to feel scared, wondering what strange things were happening. He felt like someone was staring at him. Leo put the fruit back on the plate, not daring to eat it, and went into his room, slamming the door shut. As soon as he got inside, Leo, who always looked up strange occurrences online, searched for phenomena and counting voices to see if he was encountering something or just imagining things. The search results made Leo break out in a cold sweat. It was the house ghosts count. A type of ghost people raised to guard their house, preventing anyone from stealing or taking things without the owner's permission. If the house ghost counts to 9, that person will die. Leo's face turned pale. He was terrified. Could Ken's sister-in-law be raising a house ghost? He frowned, remembering he had just picked up the fruit but hadn't eaten it yet. He had also picked up the bronze dragon. He wondered what would happen if the ghost counted to 9. Ken had just returned from some errands and found Leo sitting in his room, looking dazed, as if deep in thought. Ken nudged him and asked, What's wrong? You look like you've lost your soul. Leo looked at Ken with frightened eyes and said, I have something to tell you. I don't know if you know about it yet. What is it? Just say it. Why be secretive between friends? It seems your sister-in-law is raising a house ghost. Leo quickly shushed him, indicating silence, and said, Let's go to a coffee shop. I'll tell you there, not here. Ken nodded. Lily hadn't returned from visiting the neighbors. The two quickly ran to a coffee shop nearby. Once there, Leo recounted what happened at home and the results of his online search to Ken. Ken immediately waved his hand, saying, You think my brother's house raises house ghosts? My brother isn't like that. How would he know how to raise a house ghost? Remembering his brother, Ken then recalled the coffin in Lily's room. Leo insisted, Why don't you try calling your brother today? I find this whole thing really strange. Ken shook his head and replied, He's busy with work over there this afternoon, so I don't want to disturb him. Leo pressed, No, try calling him. The day I first arrived at your brother's house, I discovered a coffin in your sister-in-law's room. Hearing Leo, Ken's mouth dropped open in surprise. He thought Leo was just joking, so he waved his hand. Are you out of things to talk about? There's no coffin in my sister-in-law's room. Are you spying on her room? Yes, and if my brother found out, he'd kill me. I'm telling you the truth. Why would I joke about this? If you don't believe me, wait until she's gone somewhere and go into her room to see if what I'm saying is true. Ken pondered. Leo's words made sense. Ken knew Leo's personality. He never lied or made up stories. Ken immediately dialed Dan's number to call him, but only the ringing tone echoed and no one answered. Ken called several times, but it kept going straight to voicemail. He thought his brother was busy, but Dan always answered calls. Now he wasn't answering and even turned off his phone. Ken didn't understand what was happening. Ken slowly fell silent. His face now looked worried and he asked, Well, Did he not answer? Leo replied, No, usually when I call him, he answers immediately, but this time he turned off his phone. I don't understand what's happening. Hearing you say that gives me a headache. I think this is complicated, it's not simple. The most suspicious person is your sister-in-law. Ken waved his hand dismissively. You're wrong. When my brother married her, she always treated him well and never complained about anything. She was known as the most virtuous girl in the neighborhood. Leo said nothing, shaking his head in annoyance, still scared by the deep, echoing voice he heard at Ken's house earlier, as if from hell itself. Lily, at the neighbor's house, tried calling Dan's phone, but it kept going straight to voicemail. She threw the phone into a corner and gritted her teeth. That damn fool is really annoying. Now I'll use your skull as my servant. Tomorrow was Christmas, so everyone in the neighborhood decorated Christmas trees with colorful lights. The children wore Santa costumes, running and playing all over the neighborhood, making everyone smile and shake their heads at them. Ken and Leo returned home late, almost evening. As soon as they stepped in, Lily ran out and asked, Where have you two been? I've been waiting for you all day. Ken smiled and replied, Leo was busy helping the neighbors decorate the Christmas tree at the end of the alley, so we came back late. The Christmas tree in our neighborhood is really big this year, isn't it? You two must be tired. Come in, wash your hands and feet, and then dinner will be ready. After saying that, Lily went to the back of the house. Ken's eyes followed Lily, filled with suspicion. After dinner, both went to their rooms. Lily said she wanted to take a walk with her neighbors to see the Christmas atmosphere in their neighborhood. She invited the two of them to come along for fun, but they refused, saying they were tired from traveling all day and wanted to rest at home to recover. About 20 minutes after Lily left, Ken looked at Leo and said, She's probably gone far by now. Go check her room and see if what you said is true. Is there a coffin in her room? Leo nodded and replied, I'm sure there is, but I'm not doing it. You go to the front of the house and see if Lily really went for a walk or if she just went to the neighbors and then closed the door and went back to her room. Luckily for Ken, Lily had forgotten to lock her room door. Ken just opened the door. The room inside was pitch black. A chilling aura, cold to the bone, breathed onto Ken's face, carrying a metallic smell like blood. Ken shivered and stepped back, saying, I have a feeling her room is like a dungeon from hell. It's so creepy. Leo replied, It does feel creepy, but let's go check anyway. Ken nodded and turned on his phone flashlight, not daring to turn on the room light for fear Lily would return and discover them. As Ken shone the light, what immediately caught their eyes was a coffin placed right next to the bed. Leo gasped and said, See, I told you so, didn't I? Ken frowned, wondering, why would she keep a coffin in her room? Leo was about to speak, but suddenly there was a knock on the door from outside, startling both of them. Ken and Leo thought Lily had returned, so they quickly ran out, but after running out, there was no one there. Ken frowned and asked Leo, Did you hear that knock just now? Yes, very clearly. I thought your sister-in-law was back. Leo and Ken looked at each other, confused. Ken gasped, We need to go back in there and see what that coffin is, otherwise if she comes back, we're done for. Leo nodded, but just as he was about to step back into the room, Lily's voice called out from outside, You too, what are you doing in the house with the door closed? Ken looked at Leo, who understood and quickly closed the room door, saying, She's back at the perfect time, isn't she? Now you go into the room and I'll go open the door. Leo nodded, went into Ken's room and closed the door. Ken stepped out and opened the door, pretending to have just woken up, and asked Lily, Oh, you're back now, Lily? I thought you went to the end of the neighborhood and would come back later. Lily shook her head and replied, I was going to stay and hang out with the ladies in the neighborhood, but Dan called and asked if you had something to tell him when you called earlier. He was busy entertaining clients this afternoon, so he couldn't answer. Oh, you called him this afternoon? Yes, I called to check on him, Lily. Lily walked into the house, her eyes constantly glancing towards the room door. All right, you go rest, and I'll go to bed early too. Did Leo fall asleep? Yes, he's asleep. You go rest, Lily. Lily nodded and walked towards her room. Ken closed the door, breathing a sigh of relief. Good thing we closed the door earlier, or she would have discovered us sneaking into her room. Ken went back into the room where Leo was sitting on the bed and asked, How could she come back at the perfect time like that? I think her house ghost ran and told her. Leo's words seemed logical, but then he remembered Lily saying Dan called to ask what he wanted when he called, which was why she rushed back. This was strange. Ken shook his head and said, I don't think so. This afternoon, I called my brother, but he didn't answer. She went out earlier and he called her, asking her to ask me what I wanted, so she rushed back, at the same time you and I were in her room checking things out. But I'm still wondering what's in that coffin. From what I've researched, someone who wants to raise a house ghost uses the skull of a person who died tragically to practice, and the body is placed in a coffin inside the house. I think your sister-in-law. Leo paused and looked at Ken. Ken understood what Leo was trying to say. Ken looked at Leo and nodded. I know, I definitely need to see what's inside, and as for my brother, I have a bad feeling. I don't think your sister-in-law is normal. Ken shook his head and lay down to think, unable to say anything more. Lily went into her room, checked everything, and saw it was exactly as she left it. She gritted her teeth and said, "Good thing I came back in time, or those two idiots would have found out. It's time for me to get rid of them." The next morning, Ken and Leo went to Dan's company to inquire. Ken ran to the gate, met the security guard, and asked, "Excuse me, sir, has Dan been to work here in the past few days?" The security guard recognized Ken as Dan's younger brother, as Ken had often visited the company with Dan before. He nodded and said, "Yes, about a week ago, Dan told me to keep a careful watch. But what's wrong? I haven't seen Dan come to work for the past few days." "Oh, nothing, sir. They say he went abroad to sign some contract, but I can't reach him, so I came to ask." The security guard stepped aside, opened the gate, and pointed inside. "You two go inside and ask the people there. I'm just the guard out here, so I don't know where Dan has gone." "Yes, thank you, sir. I'll go in." Ken and Leo went inside. In the assistant's office, a woman was working. Ken knocked on the door and asked, "Excuse me, ma'am, can I talk to you for a moment?" "Yes, of course." "What is it?" The woman, Tracy, stood up and nodded. Ken got straight to the point and asked, "I'm Dan's younger brother. I heard he went abroad to meet clients, is that right?" Tracy was Dan's assistant. How could she not know about his work trips abroad? Tracy shook her head and replied, "There's no such thing as Dan going abroad. I am his assistant, and this month there's no schedule for him to go abroad or sign any contracts." "What's wrong?" Hearing that Dan hadn't gone abroad and his sister-in-law had made up this story, Ken wondered where Dan was. What was going on? Ken asked Tracy, "Then do you know where he went a few days ago? I tried to contact him, but I couldn't." Tracy shook her head and said, "I don't know either. A few days ago, he worked very late. I asked him, and he said he was busy finishing year-end contracts and wanted to get them done, but I don't know where he went after that." "Then where else could he have gone? Anyway, thank you, ma'am. I'll go home and try contacting him again." "All right, you go ahead." Ken nodded his thanks and stepped outside. Leo, who was waiting outside, immediately asked, "So, what did she say?" Ken shook his head and replied, "Tracy said Dan didn't go abroad for any work. Lily just made that up, just as I suspected. My brother must be in trouble. We need to investigate this thoroughly. We can't jump to conclusions." Ken and Leo looked at each other, nodded, and then headed back home together. After dinner, Ken, Leo, and Lily sat watching TV, observing the Christmas atmosphere in other places. While watching, Ken turned to Lily and asked, "Lily, did you call Dan today?" Lily, taken aback by Ken's question, shook her head sadly and replied, "I called, but he didn't bother to answer. I'm so fed up." Ken pretended not to know his sister-in-law was making excuses. Ken sighed and said, "I also feel that ever since his company grew, he's neglected you too much. If he were here, I'd scold him. But we're brothers, so it's not worth arguing and making things awkward. Just leave him be." Leo was about to speak, but his phone rang. It was his father calling. He quickly went outside to answer, wondering why his father was calling at this hour. "Hello, Dad, what's wrong?" Leo's father's voice cut in. "Tonight, your grandfather came to me in a dream, warning you to leave the house you're staying in immediately." "That house, my boy, they're raising a house ghost there, preparing for something terrible." Leo replied, "I know about the house ghost, Dad, but I have to help my friend clear this up, so I can't leave. Don't worry, even though I haven't learned sorcery, Grandpa is always by my side protecting me. I'll be fine." "He's already warned you, Leo. Do what you want, but be careful. I've told you what I know." Leo abruptly hung up. In front of him, a black shadow quickly darted across the ground. Leo, thinking it was someone trying to sneak in or spy, called out, "Who's there?" Ken and Lily were talking in the room. Hearing Leo's loud voice outside, they ran out to see, but only saw Leo staring intently at a bush. There was no one else there. Ken frowned and asked, "What's wrong?" Leo pointed and said, "I just saw a black shadow lurking in that bush. I'm afraid it might be a thief, so I yelled for you and Lily to come out." Lily came over, looking around. She ran back into the house, turned on the front lights, and then ran back to the bush, but there was no one there. Lily looked at Leo, confused, and asked, "Where is anyone, Leo? Did you imagine seeing a cat or something? There's never been any theft in this neighborhood." Leo frowned. He was sure he saw a human shadow run into the bush. Was he imagining things? Leo quickly waved his hand and replied, It was very clear there really was someone running in there, but I must have imagined it. You should go get your eyes checked, then you can talk about seeing ghosts. Lily sighed. All right, you two, come inside. What's the point of standing here wondering? Leo still looked intently at the spot where the shadow disappeared, then walked into the house without saying a word. Lily saw Ken and Leo enter the house. She breathed a sigh of relief and mumbled to herself, "How can that boy see my house ghost? Could it be?" Lily looked back into the house with a puzzled expression, then pretended to walk in as if nothing had happened. Around 11 p.m., Leo suddenly felt his stomach aching. He sat up, clutching his stomach in discomfort, mumbling, "What did I eat to get such a stomachache?" He thought about waking Ken to go to the bathroom together, as the toilet was located far behind the house. It was late, and he was scared of ghosts if he went alone. But Ken was sleeping soundly, so he decided to go alone. Leo carefully opened his room door and tiptoed downstairs, afraid that any noise would wake Lily and Ken. As soon as he entered the bathroom, he felt a chilling sensation at the back of his neck, as if someone was standing behind him, breathing on his neck. Leo quickly spun around, but there was no one there. He thought it must be late, and it was just the wind blowing. A few minutes later, Leo finished his business. As he was pulling up his pants before he could zip them, a shadowy black hand stroked from the top of his head down to his neck. Leo's whole body froze, unable to move. Realizing he was encountering something, Leo tried to stay calm, mumbling for help. "Grandpa, help me, Grandpa." The black hand tightly gripped Leo's throat from behind, and a thick, black, foul-smelling liquid, like blood, oozed from its fingers onto his collar, making Leo want to vomit immediately, but he couldn't. A man's voice, as if from hell, echoed in Leo's ear. "Beg for your life. Beg and see if anyone will save you. You dared to enter my house without permission, so you won't leave here alive." As soon as the voice finished, a stream of golden light flashed in front of him and shot straight into Leo's back. The hateful hand on his neck was forcefully knocked away, followed by a piercing scream. Leo's body immediately relaxed, followed by a painful groan, and then silence. Without knowing who had just saved him, and seeing that the demonic entity had pulled up his pants, Leo quickly rushed back to his room, threw himself onto the bed, and pulled the blanket over himself, pretending nothing had happened. Inside Lily's room, there was a hidden family altar placed behind the wardrobe. On it was something round, covered with a red cloth and an incense bowl in front. Lily took out her phone to read a message from a man. She looked annoyed and mumbled, wondering if she would get what she wanted. Every night she sat, muttering to the skull, talking to it alone, but still, nothing worked. Or perhaps Lily had another thought in her head. The oil lamp illuminated Lily's incredibly sinister face. Anyone who saw it would shudder with cold. The next morning, the neighbors were all preparing everything for a grand Christmas celebration that evening. Ken and Leo walked out of the gate as Mr. Ba, a neighbor, walked by. He stopped, looked at Ken, and asked, "Is Dan home, Ken? I need to ask him something." "No, sir, Dan has gone abroad for work." "Oh, just a few days ago I asked him if he was working and he came to my house for a drink. He said he wasn't busy at all. But now he's gone abroad?" Ken frowned, confused. It seemed his sister-in-law was hiding something, which was why she made up the story about Dan going abroad. Yesterday, even his assistant said she didn't believe it, as Dan's work schedule was usually sudden. But today, Mr. Ba also said Dan wasn't busy. Could something have happened to him? "I don't know, sir. I just came back from the city 2 or 3 days ago. Lily said he went abroad, but I don't know where he went. I tried calling him, but he didn't answer." Mr. Ba didn't reply to Ken. He stared intently into Dan's house. His eyebrows furrowed as if he was seeing something. He shook his head and mumbled as he walked away, very serious indeed. Leo, who had been standing next to Ken, heard Mr. Ba's words and then looked at Ken, affirming, "So, your brother is definitely in trouble. Even though I haven't learned sorcery, my grandfather taught me how to do fortune-telling. Now I'll call my dad and ask him to read your brother's horoscope to see if anything has happened to him." Ken nodded, and Leo immediately dialed his father's number. As soon as it rang, his father picked up. "What is it, son? Your dad's busy. What's up?" "Can you help my friend with something? His brother Dan hasn't been reachable for days." "All right, put him on." Leo handed the phone to Ken, who explained the situation of the past few days to Leo's father. After listening, he sighed and asked, "So, what's your brother's date and time of birth? Let me take a look." Ken immediately told him Dan's birth details. After a long silence, more than 5 minutes, he replied, "Your brother, he's already dead." Ken froze on the spot. He couldn't believe this was true. If his brother had died, someone would have informed the family. This is Dan's horoscope, Ken said, still surprised and disbelieving. Sir, are you mistaken? Please check again, sir. How can my brother be dead? I'm not mistaken, so I checked it very carefully. That's the result, my boy. Do you know where your brother is? I want to find him. Leo's father was silent for a moment. He sighed and replied, No, I can only see if your brother is alive or dead. I can't see where his soul is. You should try finding a more skilled master because I can only help you this far. Yes, thank you, sir. Ken handed the phone back to Leo, who had been standing beside him and heard everything from beginning to end. Ken stood motionless, not saying a word. Leo understood Ken's state of mind and kept trying to comfort him. Come on, calm down. What should we do now? Ken shook his head and replied, I don't know who could hate my brother enough to kill him. But my suspicion is your sister-in-law. She might be hiding his body in the coffin and made up the excuse that he went abroad. If she's raising a house ghost, she might be using his soul for it. Hearing Leo, Ken thought it was possible she had killed his brother, as Ken had witnessed them arguing many times about Dan coming home late and not paying attention to Lily. But could Lily kill Dan over this? Ken and Leo had walked a short distance when an old man, dressed in a Santa Claus outfit with a large pile of gifts in the back of his car, stopped in front of them and cheerfully asked, Hey boys, are you going to get Christmas presents? Leo's eyes darted to the huge pile of gift boxes. He was excited and said, Yes, sir. How can we refuse a gift from Santa Claus? Ken stood still, catching his breath, no longer in the mood for Christmas excitement or gifts. Leo ran to the pile of gifts, looked at Santa Claus, and said, Thank you very much, sir. The old man nodded, looked at Ken and Leo with a scrutinizing gaze, and then continued driving to distribute gifts throughout the neighborhood. Leo came back to Ken, ensuring their privacy. Why do you look so down? You need to find someone to help your brother. I have a plan. What plan? Ken's eyes widened. Leo took a step closer and whispered into Ken's ear. After hearing Leo's plan, Ken nodded. All right, let's do it tonight. With that, Ken and Leo headed straight home. Leo, remembering the scrutinizing gaze of Santa Claus earlier, asked Ken, Hey, this old man, dressed as Santa Claus, always comes around to give gifts to everyone in the neighborhood every Christmas, right? Yes, that's right. But no one in this neighborhood knows who he is. Every Christmas, he appears to give gifts, but no one knows who is behind that white beard. Leo just nodded, not asking anything more about the mysterious Santa Claus. Later that evening, after eating, Ken and Leo were watching TV, which seemed a bit boring. Ken suggested, Watching this is really dull. Let's go to the end of the neighborhood and enjoy the Christmas atmosphere with everyone. It must be lively there now. Lily agreed, saying she was done with work and wanted to join the fun. Ken and Leo nodded. Lily closed the door, and the three of them cheerfully headed towards the end of the neighborhood, where most people gathered and where there was the only church. After walking a short distance, Leo clutched his stomach, his face contorted in pain, and told Ken and Lily, Suddenly, I have a terrible stomachache. You two go ahead, I'll run back to deal with it and then catch up. Ken looked at Leo's pained expression and chuckled. You look like you're about to explode. You can wait a little longer, we're almost there. Lily immediately waved her hand and said, No, I locked all the doors. I'll go back with Leo to open the door for him, then I'll catch up with you. Can you go ahead? Ken pondered for a moment and then said, How about you give me the key? I'll go back and open the door for him so you don't have to go back and get annoyed. Leo, clutching his stomach, urged them, Anyone, just hurry, it's almost too late. Seeing Leo yelling in pain, Lily reluctantly gave the key to Ken. All right, you go back and open the door for him. I'll go ahead. Ken took the key and, along with Leo, returned home. Before, when Dan built the house, he made the bathroom an extension connected to the back of the house, so one needed a key to use it. Otherwise, they would have to find a bush to relieve themselves. As the two got close to the house, Leo was fine, his stomach didn't hurt at all. Ken looked at Leo and teased, You'd be a fantastic actor, you know that? You were so convincing, I actually thought you had a real stomachache. Leo replied, I'm only good at acting for two people. For this one, I'm out. And glared, What kind of movie is that only two people can act in? Leo quickly waved his hand and replied, You'll understand soon. Let's go open that coffin and see if it's your brother. Ken nodded, opened the door, and the two headed straight into Lily's room. As Ken opened the door, a cold gust of air from inside hit both their faces, giving them goosebumps. Ken flinched and turned to Leo, asking, This time, I feel it's even scarier than before. Why is her room like a morgue? Leo stepped inside and said, Actually, from what I know about Feng Shui, this place has a lot of yin energy, so it's naturally cold. Come on, I'm here, don't be scared. Ken nodded, and the two approached the coffin. Lily's room door faced the street, so Ken didn't dare to turn on the light, fearing they would be discovered. The phone flashlight shone on the coffin, and Ken's curiosity urged him to open it immediately to see what was inside. Ken urged Leo, "Come on, give me a hand and open the coffin lid, hurry up. She'll be back soon." Not hearing a reply from Leo, Ken turned to see him staring intently at the wardrobe. Ken asked, confused, "What are you doing, just standing there without answering me?" Leo pointed at the corner of the wardrobe and stammered, It looks like a skull." Ken shone his flashlight towards the wardrobe and saw that Lily had forgotten to cover the skull with the red cloth, so Leo and Ken froze in horror when they saw it. Ken's hand trembled as he pointed at the skull and stammered, "Why? Why is she keeping a dead person's skull there?" Leo was silent for a moment, then thoughtfully replied, "I think this is the house ghost she uses. People who die tragically are used for training. The more tragically someone dies, the stronger the house ghost becomes after training, and it serves its master without daring to disobey." Could it be? Ken understood and looked towards the coffin. Without hesitation, he walked over to it. Each of them took an end and opened the coffin lid. A pungent, foul smell wafted out. Inside was a headless corpse, its body parts stripped of flesh in several places, exposing the bones. Leo immediately felt like vomiting as soon as the coffin was opened. Ken, however, recognized whose body it was. Ken bent down to look closer and realized it was the shirt he had saved money to buy and send to his brother recently. Ken stammered, "This shirt. This is my brother's." The decaying body gave off a putrid smell. Ken reached out and pulled up the bottom of the shirt, revealing a black birthmark the size of a palm below the navel. Ken immediately knelt, his eyes filled with tears. "Brother." Leo, standing beside him, gritted his teeth. "So, it's definitely your cruel sister-in-law. She killed her husband to raise a house ghost, just as you said. Your brother often came home late and was too busy with work to care about her, so she used this method to keep him by her side forever, obediently listening to her every word without daring to disobey. I can't believe she's such a wicked person. Just you wait, I'm going to confront her and demand answers." Ken had just gotten up and was about to leave the room when suddenly, as if someone was standing there, the door slammed shut, startling Ken and Leo in fear. Ken thought Lily had closed the door, having heard and seen everything, trapping them inside. Ken yelled, "Lily, why are you doing this to me? Open the door and talk to me." No one replied. The house became terrifyingly silent. Ken continued, "Open the door and explain everything to me. You can't hide forever." Still no reply. Ken, furious, gritted his teeth and kicked the door with all his might, but there was no one outside. Ken looked at Leo, puzzled. "There's no one outside. Why did the door suddenly close?" Leo thought for a moment and replied, "I think it was her house ghost that closed the door. That house ghost is your brother's soul. She definitely knew you and I were in the room searching, so she rushed over here first to deal with us. Otherwise, you and I would end up like your brother, lying in that coffin. If you're scared, go ahead and leave, but I have to make her pay for her crimes." As Ken finished speaking, applause echoed from outside, accompanied by Lily's enraged voice. "You two dared to enter my room. Then tonight will be the last night you get to celebrate Christmas." Ken reached out and turned on the light switch, revealing Lily's utterly wicked face. Ken pointed directly at Lily. "Lily, you killed Dan, didn't you?" Lily smirked, her eyes wide as she replied, "Since you already know, there's no point in denying it. Anyway, tonight, neither of you will leave this house alive, so I'll tell you both. Yes, I killed your brother. Do you have any other questions?" Before Ken could speak, Leo asked, "So, you used Ken's brother's skull to raise the house ghost, right? And the body in that coffin is Dan's. And that very first day, you used Dan's meat to cook for me and Ken to eat." "Exactly. I knew you realized it was human flesh, which is why you didn't dare to eat it the next day. And that night, you secretly spied on my room. You know too much now." Lily pulled a knife about a hand's length from her top, sharpened to a deadly point. Ken and Leo realized Lily intended to kill them. Ken glared and shouted, "What are you doing? You killed my brother and now you plan to kill me and my friend too? I never thought you were such a wicked person. How pitiful for my brother." "He married a demon, not a human." Lily burst out laughing and said, "I freed your brother, isn't that good? So he doesn't have to be busy anymore. Always at the company, never caring about me. Now he doesn't have to do anything. He'll be by my side, listening to me forever. Isn't that better? Why blame me for being evil?" Ken shouted, "I will definitely make you pay." Leo looked at the knife in Lily's hand, so scared he turned as pale as a ghost. Although Lily was a woman, she was very strong. How could they fight her? The knife in Lily's hand looked incredibly sharp. If she stabbed them once, they would instantly go to meet their ancestors. Leo pulled Ken back and said, "Now is not the time to argue with her. Do you see the knife in her hand? If we don't escape from here, you and I will be finished tonight. We can always report to the police. They will handle it. We shouldn't argue with someone as cruel as her." Leo's suggestion seemed right, but before the two could turn to run out the door, Lily flew into a rage. "You two can only escape this house by digging a hole. Close all the doors for me." As if by an unseen force, the windows and back door immediately slammed shut. Leo, realizing something had just closed all the doors, looked at Ken and stammered, "It's over. It's over for you and me. There's no way to run now. We can only face Lily, either die or live." Ken wasn't scared, but Leo kept swallowing. In his heart, he regretted inviting Ken home for Christmas. He thought it would have been better to stay alone in his dorm than to die here now. Lily advanced closer and closer. The sound of her fingernails scraping on the glass was unsettling. Lily raised the knife, aiming straight for Ken's neck, when suddenly an old man cheerfully walked in from outside the door and said, "The house is so crowded. Do you want Christmas presents?" Lily flinched, while Ken and Leo recognized him as the Santa Claus from the afternoon. Hearing a stranger, Lily quickly shoved the knife into her pocket, not wanting Santa Claus to see it. She turned around and waved her hand. "Please go away, sir. I don't need any gifts. You came into my house without asking permission." The old man seemed to ignore Lily's words and walked straight to Ken and Leo, asking cheerfully, "Oh, you two are here. It's Christmas, why aren't you out with everyone in the neighborhood? Or should I give you a ride there? I'm also looking for a way to distribute gifts there." Leo rejoiced, unexpectedly finding a lifeline. If the old man hadn't appeared, Lily would surely have killed them. Leo quickly nodded and replied, "Yes, sir, we want to go there now." Ken still stared at Lily, not looking away. Leo tugged at Ken's arm and said, "Come on, hurry up. Do you want her to kill you?" "You go, I need to finish this." Lily knew that if Ken and Leo left, they would expose her crime of killing her husband, and she would have to face the consequences. Now, the only way was to eliminate Santa Claus as well, and everything would be over. Lily pulled out her knife again. "No one is leaving here, and you, old man, you came at just the right time. Everyone in the neighborhood has been wondering who you are for a long time." The old man seemed unfazed by Lily's attitude. He waved his hand. "What are you talking about? I am Santa Claus, don't you see? So tonight I will kill you all." Lily gripped the knife and lunged at the three of them, stabbing wildly. Fortunately, she didn't hit anyone. The neighbors in the area were all gathered at the church at the end of the neighborhood, waiting for Christmas, so no one knew or saw Lily's crazy attempts to kill the old man, Ken, and Leo. Ken and Leo dodged and retreated behind the old man. The old man seemed to have had enough. He shouted, "What's wrong with you? I just walked into your house to give gifts, and you're trying to kill me with a knife." Lily was panting, gritting her teeth, and said, "Yes, I'm crazy. What right do you have to barge into my house and interfere with my business? If you hadn't come at the right time, these two dogs would be dismembered by now." Hearing this, Ken and Leo also felt a strange sensation. How did the old man know they were in danger and arrived at the perfect time? Had he been following them since the afternoon? "You really are crazy. If you kill me, then from now on, this whole village will no longer have a Santa Claus distributing gifts during Christmas season." Lily ignored him, gritting her teeth, and lunged with the knife. Ken, who was next to her, quickly used his foot to kick Lily's knife-wielding hand, sending the knife flying. Ken then lunged and hugged Lily tightly, pinning her to the floor. Ken shouted, "Let's see if you're still defiant and want to kill us to cover up your crimes." Lily struggled, laughing maniacally. "You think holding me means you can get out of my house alive?" Before Ken could react, an unseen force forcefully pushed Ken's body away from Lily. The old man seemed to recognize what had just impacted Ken's body. He frowned and said, "Someone like you raising a house ghost? I thought this house had some sort of spell." Lily smirked and said, "Yes, I raised it." "The house ghost I raised is my husband. You have no right to say anything, understand? Now die." Leo quickly helped Ken up and asked, "Are you okay? I don't know who that Santa Claus is, but I don't think he's an ordinary person." "I'm fine, but I have to make that crazy woman pay for my brother." Ken and Leo stood by the door while the old man stood facing Lily. He calmly said, "I advise you to stop. Earlier, I passed by and saw many people in the house, so I dropped in to give gifts. I didn't expect to encounter what I did. I was just giving gifts for Christmas, so I only intended to go to the church at the end of the village, not to intrude on your affairs." Lily glared, her face contorted, and shouted, "There's no way you just happened to walk into my house like that. You're definitely on the same side as these two dogs. If you all know I killed my husband to raise a house ghost, then I will eliminate all of you." As Lily finished speaking, the sound of doors knocking and many other sounds inside the house began to echo. Ken and Leo seemed a bit scared, but the old man stood still. He frowned, intently looking at something standing next to Lily. He shook his head and said, "You are truly evil. A woman like you should be punished by law. You even killed your husband and used his soul to raise a house ghost for your own benefit. But you don't even know any sorcery, so it wasn't done properly. Very well then, I will free your husband's innocent soul." "You're crazy, you're talking nonsense. Go away and stop bothering others." Ken and Leo saw nothing, but the old man saw the house ghost standing opposite him, its long tongue extended, attempting to lick his face. Standing still with his arms crossed behind his back, his right hand immediately formed a Madrah hand seal, and immediately, the house ghost was forcefully thrown back by a surge of energy from the old man's body. The house ghost was thrown back, shrieking in pain. Lily also suffered injuries because she used her own 3 souls and 7 spirits to train and control it. Lily didn't know if the master she sought for guidance was helping her or harming her. Lily's nose bled, but she didn't care. She angrily said, "So you're a sorcerer, not Santa Claus after all, you wretched old man?" The old man said nothing. He took out 4 incense sticks on which Exorcism Incense Deep Min was written. He pulled out 3, lit them, and held them in front of him, saying, "I am just a Santa Claus who gives gifts to children, no sorcerer here. These spells, I just learned from a natural-born talent who taught me quickly." The incense smoke began to spread throughout the house. The house ghost's screams began to echo in Leo and Ken's ears. They only heard a faint whooshing sound, as if someone had pushed hard against their ears. Ken had been thrown back with considerable force, his body in too much pain to do anything for a while. Leo stood trembling, afraid Lily would chase him with the knife. The old man held the 3 incense sticks above his head, letting the smoke spread evenly. Then he chanted an incantation. "100 prosperity, peaceful heart, righteous path, break." He snapped the 3 incense sticks, and a golden light shot straight towards the house ghost's soul. It was indeed Dan's soul. Because it wasn't properly trained and had no experience controlling a soul, it couldn't avoid the old man's spiritual power. The golden light enveloped the house ghost's soul, purifying all the dark energy from the ghost, and then gradually returned to Dan's normal soul. Dan's soul was dazed for a moment, then looked at Lily with resentment and said, "Lily, why did you do this to me? What did I ever do wrong to you, Lily?" Lily, thanks to the master who taught her the yin-yang eye, could now see souls. Lily looked at him with a scornful expression and replied, "You abandoned me. You only cared about your work and fame, you never paid attention to me. You came home early or late, but you never asked how my day was. That's why I had to kill you and turn your soul into a house ghost, to obey me and stay by my side forever." As Lily said this, Dan's soul could not say another word. The incense smoke temporarily allowed Ken and Leo to see and hear, but they said nothing. Lily was right. It wasn't entirely her fault. It was because she loved her husband too much that she resorted to such a foolish method. Dan was also at fault for being too busy with work and forgetting his duties as a husband. Dan was always busy with work, thinking Lily would understand him, but he didn't take the time to talk or explain to her that he was very busy, leading to this situation. The old man sighed and said, "So, that's how it is. In this matter, everyone is at fault. But why didn't you express your feelings to your husband, and instead listen to someone who taught you to kill your husband and raise a house ghost?" "I didn't learn from anyone. I decided on my own after thinking about it." Ken had now stabilized. He walked over, looked at Lily, and angrily asked, "Everything has a solution. Why did you cruelly kill my brother? If you felt you couldn't live with him, you could have divorced and found new happiness. And after doing that, you still wanted to kill me and my friend. You are truly wicked. Talk to your brother, you say? I wanted to talk to him, but every time I tried, he always found a way to avoid me, saying he was tired and didn't want to listen. That's why I couldn't bear it anymore. I had to do it my way." Ken looked at Dan's soul and asked, "Is that true, brother? You were so busy that you neglected the woman who tried so hard when you had nothing. Now that you're successful, you act like this." Dan sadly replied, "It's my fault, I'm sorry." The old man sighed, then picked up his gift bag and went outside. As he left, he said, "Your brother's soul will remain in this house until she dies, then it will be freed to be reincarnated. I can only help this far. Now I have to go to the church to distribute gifts to the villagers. It's almost time." Ken and Leo were about to say something, but the old man quickly walked away and disappeared in a flash. Lily looked at the knife Ken had kicked away, which was not far from her. She intended to quickly grab the knife and stab Ken and Leo, but Ken had already seen Lily's intention, so he quickly lunged to grab the knife and shouted, "Even now you still want to kill us. I'm taking you to jail, I won't forgive you." Lily struggled to break free, screaming loudly, "Let me go, it's all your brother's fault, not mine. Your brother might be at fault, but not as much as a woman who kills her husband like you." Leo quickly ran to get a rope and tied Lily's hands to prevent her from doing anything dangerous. After tying Lily up, Ken glanced around as if searching for something. Seeing this, Leo immediately asked, "What are you looking for?" Ken shook his head in distress and replied, "Nothing, I'm looking for my brother's soul. Where did he go?" "You don't have yin-yang eyes, so you can't see his soul. The old man did something earlier that allowed you and I to see him. He's gone now, but earlier, I heard him say that your brother's soul will still be here until your wicked sister-in-law dies, then he'll be freed." Ken nodded sadly, looking at Leo with regret, and said, "I can't believe this happened on Christmas Day and you were dragged into it. If I hadn't invited you home that day, it would have been better." "Don't say that, you're my friend, it's nothing. Now let's put your sister-in-law in jail first and then bury your brother's body." Ken nodded grimly, saying nothing more. The next morning, Ken called the police to investigate the scene in Lily's room. Lily confessed to her crime and was scheduled to appear in court to face the murder charge. The incident became known to the neighbors, who asked Ken what happened, but Ken didn't tell everyone that Lily had actually killed his brother. He only said that Lily was involved in some legal matters, so the police invited her to work with them. That night, Dan's remains were taken to the crematorium and then sent to a pagoda to receive prayers, hoping for a good reincarnation. A few days later, Ken had settled everything. Today was New Year's Eve, and he stayed home, not yet returning to the city. Leo, noticing Ken was still sad about his brother, walked over and asked, "It's the end of the year, cheer up. Everything is over now, and she's paid for her crime. Don't be sad anymore, I'm here with you." "I know." Leo was right. Mr. Ba stood looking at Ken's house. He shook his head and mumbled, "Life is truly impermanent. Indeed, as the saying goes, the enemy by your side is your own kin, and the enemy before your eyes is your own kin." How true. Late that night, Lily sat in her prison cell, feeling as if there were no other inmates around, only herself. In her heart, Lily was filled with rage towards the master who had guided her in performing the spell. He had only taught her half-heartedly, leading to such a situation. And all the money she had saved was gone to him. Lily looked through the bars, gritting her teeth, and said, "This society is full of scoundrels, worse than anything." Lily suddenly went mad. She screamed, but no one paid attention. Suddenly, Dan's painful groaning voice echoed in Lily's head. "Lily, why did you do this to me?" "Lily!" Lily flinched, quickly turning around to see Dan standing with his back to her, blood splattering with each breath, a gruesome sight. Dan's voice echoed again, "You wretched woman, pay for your life?" Lily's face drained of color. She screamed endlessly. The prison guards, hearing Lily's continuous screams, had to send someone in to inject her with a sedative so she wouldn't continue her crazy rampage. That day, Ken went to the pagoda to light incense for his brother. It was almost Tet. Since he still had to focus on his studies, he couldn't visit regularly. His once complete family now had no one else. As Ken stepped into the pagoda, his phone rang. It was Leo's number. Ken answered and asked, "Hello, what's up?" Leo replied, "I just got some information about your evil sister-in-law." "What information? How is she?" "I heard she went completely mad and now acts like a crazy person, constantly screaming things like, 'Don't haunt me anymore, there's a ghost here, there's a ghost here.' I think your brother's soul is haunting her." Ken was silent for a moment, then said, "Oh, let her be. I'm a bit busy now, let's talk later." Ken hung up, taking a deep breath, absorbing the peaceful tranquility of the place. The temple bell chimed softly, signaling the arrival of spring. Ken shook his head and silently walked into the pagoda.